Hello and welcome to the first ever Virgin Disruptors event. In true Disruptors fashion, you'll see it's me, Sam Branson, not my sister Holly, hosting you this evening. Over the coming months, we'll be debating some of the hottest cultural topics, but tonight it's all about the music. I'm sure you all know music is very important to Virgin. It's what our brand was built upon. So tonight, we're live from Virgin Records' 40th anniversary exhibition, and of course, it's not just part of our history. We're well aware that the music industry is facing huge changes. It seems that everyone is in agreement that technology has altered the way we discover, consume, and enjoy music. But is tech killing the music industry? It's the industry's most hottest topic right now, so plenty to talk about for our first live Disruptors debate. So we better get things started. So over to Colin Murray.
Thank you, Sam. It seems like such a simple question, but it's complex in the extreme. We'll try and cover as much as we can tonight. Is tech killing the music industry? Has technology already killed the music industry, or is it progressing it better and stronger than ever before? And I've got fantastic people in the room. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to be a referee rather than a host for this special program to keep our Virgin Disruptors in check. If you're watching and you want to tweet, you can do that. Just hashtag Virgin Disruptors would be great. What a lineup I have. I'll get through it all and then we'll give him a round of applause here. In London with me, an artist who's been used in the modern world probably more than ever to create, Imogen Heap. Beside Imogen, it's the very well-dressed Senior Vice President of the video music platform Vevo. Nick Jones is with us. We have Ian Hogarth, co-founder of Songkick, a successful live music tracker app. And just to my right here, we've got Trevor Skeet, who amongst many other things is Spotify's artist advocate. Could be a busy night for you, sir, I would imagine. The second half of our panel will be joining us from around the world. So let's introduce them to you. They're coming to us via the Google Hangout On Air. We're going to start in New York. Scooter Braun is the man who brought us the first YouTube superstar that wasn't a cat, Justin Bieber. We've got from Germany a musician well known for use of tech platforms, in particular Kickstarter, but in my opinion has used YouTube better than 99.9% of all people ever. Amanda Palmer. Also then we go to San Francisco. We've got an artist who earlier in the year publicly released details of her earnings from music tech platforms and also more traditional avenues. The cellist Zoe Keating's with us. And finally from LA, a music superstar known across the world, Will.i.am. Let's just give you a chance to all say something nice and early. I'll resist the chance to say, let's get it started here and just go to Imogen. You released iMegaphone in 1998. You've got Sparks coming out next year. Ellipse was in 2009. The way those records have been recorded, promoted, everything has changed as the music industry has changed.
Yeah, drastically. When I began, I was 18 and I released iMegaphone. I guess the playing field was much simpler. We released the CD, and the people that bought it, we kind of roughly knew where they were in the world, and we'd go and tour those places. And that's what happened. But now it's very different, and actually I have no idea, in a way, because I've literally just finished my last record. I'm going to release it next year. So much has changed even just in the last 4 years since I released my last record. So many different platforms, so many different ways to reach my fans, and so many unknowns as well. So I'm very excited to see exactly where it's going to take me, but nobody really knows. That's the exciting thing.
How much of it do you understand?
Well, I understand that there's some people in the room here tonight which are massively changing the way that I can reach my fans and that can monetize the way that the music that I make in a very different way than it was back in the day, which was basically just CD sales, or music sales. So now there's streaming, and I can have the empowerment to do a tour in a completely different way, and fans can vote for me to go to different places around the world, so I know that the audience will already be there before I get there. So yes, it's not perhaps the same amount of people who are buying my music, but there are many other ways to make money in this so-called industry.
Yeah.
And it's a very exciting place to be.
Well, let's cross over to Will. Will, you love most things tech. I've been watching your Virgin Disruptor video, which is brilliant, and you have a ball using them as well. But what about the smaller artists? How can they use it to their advantage? Are they able to showcase themselves, and do they get enough back in terms of payment?
Well, if there was a time, you know, in the whole world of music and connectivity, whether it's radio or television or now this new platform, not so new anymore, but the internet, right now would be the best time for a new artist to find who their audience is, connect directly one to many, and how you make money is up to your imagination. Yesterday's system was yesterday's system. And that system was because of, you know, one company that owned the majority of the platform. And I'm talking about hardware and software. And that was RCA. So now we live in a different world where the artist, potential artist, or a comedian, or whoever it may be on this platform has the ability to aggregate a large amount of eyeballs, if you want to use that word, or people. And it's up to you to figure out how you monetize that, you know, and that's the power of the cluster. You know, what I mean by that is, instead of a singer wanting to, you know, look for a guitarist or look for a bass player and they create a band. Today, it's a singer and incorporating a coder, a singer and a guitarist incorporating a catter, and that's how you're going to use your music to sell other things. And you know, it's a day and age where we don't have to use our music to sell somebody else's stuff. Right now, we're selling iPods and iPhones and iThings, and it's sold on iTunes.
A lot of eyes. Thanks very much for that, Will. Trevor, taking on the point that Will just made there, from a Spotify point of view, whatever we talk about here tonight, could you just kill this debate in one line? We could all go home now by saying, tough, deal with it. The music industry now is technology, and it's only going to get worse or better depending on your point of view.
I suppose I could say that, but I'd probably be doing a disservice to a lot of the jet lag and the travel in the room. And quite personally, I think having these kinds of discourse is extremely productive for the music ecosystem. I like doing these things because it's always important to hear what Will has to say, what Joey has to say, what else has to say about these subjects, and then the rest of the people and the peers in our community can dissect that and then hopefully propel things forward to make it a better place for everyone.
Let's bring Scooter in to London here. It's brilliant to connect the world into the room tonight. Listen, Justin Bieber is a child of YouTube, a global phenomenon. We all know that story as well. But it's the same medium now that captures everything he does, you know, good and bad. It's like he lives in his own reality online TV show, morning, noon, and night, and everyone's tracking his every move. In any way, are you now a little wary of the technology that created him, that gave him that platform?
See, I'm trying to be polite when you ask those questions because I got a little delay, so I'm like afraid to talk until I know you're done. I think as far as am I weary, I think anyone's weary of a 19-year-old in general, let alone one who's living in a world where probably no anyone in humanity has ever grown up in a day and age where they're that famous around the world, where we have camera phones and we have Twitter and we have Instagram and everything he does is being watched. That being said, that is his reality. So when it comes to me being weary, he because of technology, he's been given a platform where he can break the entire world faster than everyone before, because he's able to share his content like he did on YouTube originally all around the world and build that fan base. That being said, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And he and I have conversations at length of, we could sit around and feel sorry for him, of the fact that, you know, he goes to the bathroom and it's front page news. Or we can say, you know what, this is why you're getting to live the blessed life you're living, and we have to deal with it because we are in a day and age where he has the advantage of leaning over and grabbing his phone and talking to 45 million people all at once. And I think artists 20 years ago would have dreamed of that reality.
Ian, there's two things you do, by the way. Your main website, you click, you like a gig, you click it and you buy a ticket. But it can also get a situation where people are finding out how many people want to see them in that town and go there. And I think that's absolutely sensational. I think it does empower smaller artists in particular. But how do you feel about the same technology? The next day, there's 100 really bad quality versions taken in an iPhone or taken in whatever the Android phone is up on YouTube. Is that technology in many ways sort of decreasing the artist value?
Yes, I'm like have a non-traditional tech person. You hear me all right?
Tell you what, I'm going to throw you this mic, buddy. Here you go. Try that just in case.
I guess, how's that?
Side. Is that one on?
Somebody doesn't like you. Try again.
Check.
Pass the mic.
I'm gonna listen. We'll talk to Amanda. We'll get that sorted by the time. I'll look at this. Sharing mics.
Hello?
Isn't technology just brilliant? It was always going to happen.
So yeah, I guess I'm a kind of a non-traditional tech person in that I'm kind of excited about tech getting out of the way. Like to me, like the biggest rush is going out and seeing a new band live, and when I'm in the room and I'm with the artist and there's no tech and I'm just with an artist I love, like that's the best feeling. And so our whole company is basically all about getting you away from your computer in front of an artist. So to me, the stuff like the next day on YouTube, it's kind of cool. It helps the artists spread the word about themselves. But I think the most important thing is just to be there.
Yeah, you never change that at all. The wonderful Amanda, I think you're going to be my voice of reason tonight. Is it fair to say you've got mixed views when it comes to technology's relationship and effect of musicians and artists?
Sure, but I think musicians have probably had mixed feelings about the intersection of music and whatever the technology of the day was since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
Because it's never like making music and then delivering it to people has been simple or easy. And, I think asking the question is really funny. Asking the question, has music, has the tech industry killed music, is like, there's been a kind of a tech industry since there was music. There's always been these different formats and different delivery systems, and artists and musicians have always been like, this is just the shit I have to work with. It's always going to be confusing or challenging in its own way, and these are just the challenges of our times. Listening to Scooter talk about Justin Bieber is interesting because one of the things that a lot of musicians are dealing with now is, if you do have a gazillion Twitter followers, where 10 years ago I might have spent more time and energy on songwriter, I spend a lot of my energy now just being a communicator. And I happen to love it. And I wonder if that's actually killed a lot of my artistic energy, because it used to be that the music was kind of a means to the end of communicating. But if you can go directly to the communicating, it's really fun. It's like crack. So, that's just change. I wouldn't ever say it's good or bad. I mean, we could argue the goods and the bads and the pros and cons till we die. But it is really interesting to see, the generation like me and Zoe or whatever, people who are in their 30s and 40s who grew up totally without internet and without email and who have done the flip. Because, talking to 15 and 20, even 25-year-olds now, they don't really even have a conception of what pre-internet life was like and what it was like to be totally fucking bored in your bedroom with nothing to do. So you listened to records and tried to figure out lyrics and you wrote songs and you didn't have anyone to share them with. There was just no option. There was no outlet. And I think that had a lot of pros and cons. I think it was great. I think it made us really crazy and imaginative, but it's hard to know what Zoe and I would have done when we were 12 if we had had the internet. It just would have been a totally different scene.
I can't wait to come back to the musicians' relation to that a little bit later on, especially does it strip away the mystery. I remember going to see bands who all my mates owned the records, we knew dick all about them, and it was just this mystery. We thought, what are they doing out the back in the tour bus? It was this hallowed place. You never got to see inside it. Nick Jones, the thing with Vevo, which is interesting, it's replicated on a lot of online music, is the idea of a genre kind of disintegrates a little, in that if you put a whole load of videos up, you got your hip hop and your pop and your indie and your electronica, etc., just all lumped together, maybe under new or maybe under notable or maybe under hot, not necessarily in genre. You have to go and find that. Is the blurring of those lines healthy? Open people's minds to different type of music? Can technology do that, or does it turn it into a fast food product where you could just click, 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 like?
Look, I mean, to coin a cliche, all those are just labels. And the reality is that what we try to do is have music discovery at the centre of everything that we try to drive through Vevo. So the idea that I can listen to or watch one piece of music and one art form and be drawn to another one that I might never have seen, I think becomes the fact that it's incredibly hard now to be able to differentiate between different styles of music and put them in boxes. I think that's where we are now. So the idea that technology is in some way inhibiting music, I think it's the other way around. I think it's there to facilitate it, and music will be around long after any of us have left this earth, and there will be another form and another way of developing it. So we are a response to the fact that we believe that video is an art form in its own right. It's not just a promotion for a tour or for a CD, and that there is value in that, and hopefully we can deliver that value back to the artist.
It allows my last 2 album purchases to be Nick Cave and Miley Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus,
This
really?
is the rehearsal, right? Or not? Streamed online at the moment. Oh dear. Zoe, you use the internet really well as an unsigned artist. Some would say without it, you might have to be chained to a record label. You might need those people a little bit more. But you've also said that streaming devalues music, and I'm sure you won't be the only person in this room that has to balance out a lot of different thoughts.
Sure. I mean, on one hand, it's like an artist like me couldn't exist without technology, because I can just record music in my basement and release it on the internet. And also it's leveled the playing field so that an obscure artist like myself who makes instrumental cello music, I can get it all out there. So I am an optimist, and the internet has given me these amazing tools that we never had before. And just like Amanda, it's like niche artists like myself, we can use tech to nurture our fan base so that we can be caught when we crowd surf. However, I feel like there is, at the same time, this is not an excuse for services to kind of just replicate the payment landscapes of the past. It's not an excuse to take advantage of those without power. And so I would just like to say that this new ecosystem is still in its infancy, and that we have a chance to kind of shape it before it all gets baked in. And that's why I've been so vocal, is just to try to make the ecosystem work for everybody, that corporations do have a responsibility, not just to their shareholders, but to the world at large, and I think to artists. And I'd like to bring artists like myself into the discussions for what would make these services really work for me. It's awesome for consumers to be able to hear any music at any time. What would make it really work for me? So I'd just like to talk about that a bit more.
Absolutely, and let's get you all talking to each other now. You've made your opening statements, everyone in the room and everyone watching's found out a bit about you. I'll throw out random topics. Feel free to go wherever you want with it at all. I want to go streaming, I want to go Spotify. Listen, Trevor, I know there are other streaming sites, but they're not in the room. So if anyone's got any criticism whatsoever, you're getting it right in the neck from the other 7 people at any stage. Listen, you can't ignore the plaudits, and you'll get many for it, so this isn't an attack at all. But by the same token as walking in here tonight, diverging with talking heads ringing out all over here, and people like David Byrne, I mean, they're very extreme in their views against it, aren't they? It'll suck the creative content out of the world until there is nothing left, is what he said. So whilst not ignoring the plaudits, I suppose you've got to take on board the criticisms. You're definitely next, Zoe. Talk to Zoe about it.
Talk to Zoe about it. I mean, first of all, I love artists. I am an artist. I've written, produced, I've been signed to a major, I've been signed to indie, I've toured in vans, I've toured in tour buses, and I love being an artist, but it also leads to being eccentric. And I think while some of those claims could be lending themselves towards some truth, I think they may be a bit off-center. And I think, the reality is a few artists may get some attention for saying statements like that, but the reality is at Spotify, I mean, we've asked Eagles, Metallica, Pink Floyd, all coming and joining the service, but they want to be a part of something they think is really helping the industry.
Oh, I lost them for a bit.
Don't worry, Zoe. He was just talking about people, and it made a really good point, actually, there, Zoe, about people like Metallica, of course, famous when it comes to when I say we, the royal we, I'm not admitting to it, but you go back to the birth of Napster, when we were all just stealing this music. There was no payment whatsoever. At least Spotify are paying something, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've never experienced having my, seeing piracy as a threat. I just don't see it as a threat. I've had my career exist entirely after Napster. My job is just to make music and then convince people that it's worth buying, and half of my income is from sales. That said, I don't feel like streaming is the evil enemy. I feel like it's actually a good, positive thing to get music out there, and I feel like it's good. All I'm asking for is to make a direct deal with me. Let me negotiate my terms. Let me do things like decide if windowing is good or bad. You know, the jury's out. Let me just decide that myself. Let me work with you directly. That's all I'm asking for.
And they don't do that for you now, and you feel it needs to go that further because, as you said, the musicians can shape the future of the music industry.
Yeah, I think that the idea of how does a service like Spotify interact with a bazillion artists, it's an administrative problem that maybe technology could help solve. You know, I have direct deals with YouTube, I have direct deals with iTunes. There should be some way to do this. And also, I'd like to think about more about how they can, you know, are there any sort of neutral services in the middle that can help the listeners in their services connect to me directly to go to a concert or that kind of thing. I think that the payments, I have no idea. I don't know if my deal is the same as Warner. I doubt it. But I'd like things to be really transparent. That's the way I think a free market should work. I think it should be transparent. Like make music like the stock market.
Well, that's what you were saying right at the start. You were saying about creativity is the key, and there's Zoe who's got ideas in her head, ways to change things, more clarity as well. Do you see it like that as well? It's a good thing with other things that need change, that need to be better for the artist?
Can I speak up here?
I'd
I'd like to just add to what Zoe was saying. There's also the other kind of general problem that I think we're seeing that doesn't really get addressed very much because it's so big and possibly unfixable, is that as bad and clunky as the major label system was, you still had a constant influx of capital back from those giant, sometimes soul-sucking systems back into content creation. And one weird thing is that, you know, iTunes, Apple, Spotify, Google, whatever, all of the people who are profiting, YouTube, who are profiting off the artists from the small level to the huge levels, aren't really feeding very much back into the creation of new content. And that's actually one of the largest problems. And even though my views aren't nearly as extreme as David Byrne's, but he does bring up the giant question, which is, where is the capital going to come from to make art? And, you know, people might think it's crazy for me to say that because you can crowdfund, you can, you know, there's a lot of things you can do, but wouldn't it seem that the place that's making the lion's share of the profit should actually also be putting money back into the creation of content to have a healthy ecosystem?
How do you monitor, and is there a way to monitor that someone could be streaming your music in the likes of Spotify? There's no way really of matching that up against how many physical sales, how many sales off iTunes you're getting from that? You can't really see how much money that's putting back into your pocket. Somebody streams it and then buys it.
I have something I would say about it after Will's talk.
Yeah, on you go.
Oh, I was going to say that this sort of links a little bit into Ian with Songkick, in that I recently crowdsourced a tour for December, and you know, I asked my listeners what city they wanted to see me in, and the winning cities. Then I, started selling tickets and what have you. But I would love to know. Say, for example, I have generally some city that isn't selling as well as another city. On which music service am I being listened to the most? Because that's where I might advertise, to let them know. Like, is it on Spotify? Are people listening mostly on YouTube? Are they listening on Rhapsody? What is it? And I would love some way that I could get some data from the services, like in a more real-time basis, to let me know that. Because then that would really be useful, because I have different listeners who live from different places. Even Facebook lets me a little bit of that, but I'd like it from the streaming services too.
I wonder, is that different depending on where you are in the food chain of artists, the billion sellers up against the independent artists, the unsigned artists? Scooter, do you get that information? Are you able to garner that information from your streams for acts like Justin Bieber?
Well, first let me say this. I think the debate, the whole conversation started with, is tech killing the music industry? And I think we just need to throw that out the window, because I think what everyone's saying here is tech has always been there, tech will always be there. This is what we're dealing with today. And, the music industry will continue because people will always need music. The question we need to ask ourselves as we move forward is, what industry are we in today? I think that the reason why we keep having this constant conversation, is tech killing the music industry, is because it's killing the jobs of people who have been doing the music industry for 30 years and have been doing it wrong for the last 10. So, now going to whether, giant artists that sell millions and millions of records, companies, look, we're all going through growing pains. We're all going through a place where we're expecting more from Spotify, we're expecting more from iTunes. I, as a manager, on behalf of all of my clients, who all feel just as important as the other one, am calling all these services on a daily basis, screaming at them, waking people up at Spotify in the middle of the night, waking people up at iTunes in the middle of the night, waking people up at a Best Buy in the middle of the night. That's my job. But that being said, we talk about Spotify, and I'm going to defend Spotify a little bit because I've been one of the managers who've come out very publicly to defend it. And all services, Songs of Spotify, the new Beat service that Jimmy Iovine showed me recently. Here's the deal. We can say that we want things to be better. We can say we want things to change, and we'll get there. But what we need to realize is the consumer and the listener dictates what happens. And as technology is speeding things up, they're finding new ways to consume music, to embrace music. We listen to radio every single day, and we hear music for free. We can go on YouTube and we can listen to something for free, but we freak out if we aren't getting paid by Spotify the same way, and that's because it's not status quo yet. This conversation will be irrelevant in 10 years. So as we move forward, it's not about addressing, will the music industry die? That's a dumb question. I think everyone in the room agrees with me. It's how are we going to adjust to an evolving industry, and who's going to survive, and who's going to be forward-thinking. And when I go to my office, the oldest person's 34 years old, and I'm listening to the 20 and the 18-year-olds nonstop because they're telling me what's next. And that's why I like Will.i.am, because Will is a mad scientist who's constantly showing me all kinds of weird things that are coming. And I have to be aware of those, because if I say, oh, you know what, I'm doing great, my artists are doing great, and I want things to stay the exact same, well, then I should expect not to do so great tomorrow. And, the last thing I'm going to say before I ramble on and on is, at the end of the day, all of this comes down to two simple things: the music that's made and how artists deliver it and interact with their fan base. My parents used to listen to vinyl, and that's how they found and discovered things. They go to concerts. Now, when I was a kid, it was mixtapes, finding that magazine and finding that mixtape. Now kids are embracing it through the internet. But the actual discovery, the self-discovery, that sensation you get when you find something before it's processed and delivered to you on radio, that feeling is still the same. Whether they get it on the internet and found it on vinyl when my parents were probably, smoking weed and listening to vinyl back in the day.
Okay, well, you've been described as a mad scientist, which is never a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. We talked about a lot of things since we last talked to you. Just pick up on a couple of those points. I think we said at the top it was a very complex question, and we were going to break it down in many different ways. But is it important, of course, that the music industry is going to progress? It's going to go the way it's going now. There's no stopping it. But do the artists, certainly as well, those independent artists, need to know who's listening to the music, where they're listening to the music, be supplied with that data?
Okay, I'll break it down as simple as I can. The music industry is based on our contracts, right? How it's monetized and is based on what they're selling, or what relationships they have for them to monetize the art we make in the studios. So when you think of our contract are all based on old technology, right? An album is like 12 songs. And the reason why it's 12 songs is because that's how much information fit on a record, right? So when you think of like how long a song should be, like it's in your contract. If you're complaining about this music industry, let's go back down to the contract. A song is like 5 minutes long. If it's 10 minutes long, it's not really a song. If it has more than 8 sections in it, it's like it doesn't equate to the contract, because that's how much information fit on their hardware. So when you had a record player and if you had 12 songs that were 10 minutes long, can't fit, homie. You better chop that shit down to 4 minutes. Right? So that our contracts are based on old technology and old storage. So the people that created that system is these guys. Right? That's RCA's Victor's Talking Machines. RCA owns Victor's IP. And that became our motherfucking swipe, nigga, swipe. Hold on. That became our freaking Grammy Award. So now that old technology is now our award. That's like 10 years from now, we're going to go up on stage and be like, I'd like to thank everybody for this phony iPhone award, because we're listening to things from gramophones. We went from gramophones to iPhones.
Yeah.
We went from listening to music on a gramophone to a phone. Now, if you're going to complain about streaming or buying things from iTunes, the user is all listening to it from their phone. And their phone has the same, why are they going to pay for it if they could just listen to it while they're running and have a YouTube a playlist? You're asking people to buy things on the same device where it's streaming for free. Now, what intelligent person is going to buy something for 99 cents when I can just search it on Google and listen to it? Whether it's on SoundCloud, you talk about Spotify. Spotify doesn't see things on SoundCloud. If it's not for sale, certain streaming services don't see it. Now, that's why it's important to have that coder, have that catter next to you as a group. So I Got a Feeling is still the #1 downloaded song of all times on iTunes. But I made more money with my equity in Beats. Right? So that tells you that hardware is the place to be. You want to own some IP or be a part of some company. It's not hard for Zoe or Amanda to go out and find some geek or somebody that writes some code, that making some app, that coming out with some consumer electronic product and bring it to market. Or else we're going to be sitting here complaining that yesterday's system isn't really servicing me the way I want it to. If you're going to complain about somebody else's system, then you need to slow down and get a person to bring your own system to marketplace. It's not hard to create systems nowadays. It's the democratization of everything you could possibly imagine. So we could sit here and complain, or we could go find some motherfucking geeks. I hang out with geeks all the time. So when you say a freaking scientist, I'm hanging out with the fucking scientists. I ain't trying to hang out. I'm not trying to hang out with no freaking hater that's gonna sit there in the back of the audience and get mad because my music isn't made for that person's liking. Fuck that shit. I learned that a long time ago.
I think we
right,
all,
so,
I think we
so
all agree on that. I'm going to bring Trevor in to talk to you now. Will, he wants to talk about some of the things that you said.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in all those things. But I think one thing I'd like to chime in on is the idea that, like, yes, the way music is discovered and listened to has changed tremendously. We talk about 300 years ago, you may have gone to an opera once a month and heard 3 hours of music. It may have progressed forward to, 3 minutes of film on a piece of vinyl, a mixtape or whatever it is. And engaging and understanding the way your audience discovers music is important. If you're an artist, and I'm an artist that makes a certain kind of music, you should understand the way your audience is going to enjoy it and cater towards them. The other thing I'd like to point out is that I don't necessarily believe the burden has to be on Amanda or Zoe to go out and become tech investor geniuses and angel investor geniuses. I am working at Spotify because I genuinely like to see a place where I can go to my back house studio, make music, share it with the world, monetize it, and make enough more money to share it with my kids and have a nice life. They want to live on a tour bus or playing raves.
There's a couple of points, Imogen, in terms of what Will was saying about the old idea, of course, that you could only fit so much music, and that was the length the record has to be. And in a way, radio still constrains people that way. There'll be people in the room that work in radio, and it'll be, that's how long we want it to be, that's how it's going to go in the playlist. Does technology give you the chance to think less about, I need to fit it into that, and the struggles and the tears that comes with taking your art and ripping it apart for a radio edit or to fit onto the particular physical copy?
Yeah. I do still like the format of a song in a specific time because I've grown up with that, and I find it's for a certain type of song it's great, and I enjoy that. But I'm also enjoying creating generative and reactive music, which is music that never stops. It changes every time you listen to it. It's different every time. It changes on depending on where you're listening to it and the context of what's going on around you. If there's a bottle, for instance, falling over, then it might start to harmonize and turn into the music. Or perhaps you sing something into your iPhone and it becomes the theme kind of, evolving into this piece of music. So I can be a musician in a completely different way, which is very exciting for me. So yeah, I mean, I do write these songs as well, and I sing lyrics, and I do that in a very kind of, I suppose, old-fashioned way, but I do it all myself and produce stuff in my basement. But I'm really excited about this. Imagine going into a piece of music, into a physical space that you kind of play with these virtual sounds, that you can shape them, and they're like actual. It's like walking into the holodeck or something, and you can start pulling around like different creatures of your music, and you can share them with other people in other worlds. Sorry. I like the idea that you can, that music is it's your identity, but it can exist also as a computer program, but that you've driven it.
I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit here to keep the debate going. Okay. Is there an age thing involved in this? Because I get it, and I use apps, and I use technology, and you get it. But, and when we were young, you remember the first double tape deck, and you were like, shit, I can tape the top 40 here, I can make my own tapes. It was going to kill the music industry, apparently at that stage. What about older artists? Not making a sweeping statement here, Nick, but my mum asked me last week how to search for Google. That's where she's at the moment. And some artists are maybe on their 15th, 16th, 17th album, and maybe can't really get their head around it.
Well, no, look, the reality is that it is now an environment where the user chooses how they want to interact, where they want to get it from. The reason that there's 250 million people watching Vevo every month is because they want to watch videos and they want to see whatever it is they want to watch. Now, you talked earlier on about genres. The reality is that if there is a really, really popular band right now, or a really popular artist like Bieber, or a band like One Direction, the reality of the world is that more people want to watch their video than anybody else right now. But then, ever was it so? And the fact is that there are many, the long tail is there, and much more accessible than it ever was when I used to go to the Virgin Records when it first opened here, because it was the only place. Because in Maidenhead they didn't, they weren't selling Bruce Springsteen's album, so you had to go to a record store to actually find, a special record store to find the album you want. Well, right now everything's available, and I think that can only be a good thing.
Can I add something real quick?
And you come well.
Okay, so I want to go back to the contract thing, because that thing is pretty interesting. That when you think of did tech kill the music industry? First off, the music industry has always been tech. RCA, like I said, showed you before, is Victor, and is the gramophones, but they're also radio. But more importantly, they're also NTSC. So that transmission that makes television, same company. So when you think of audio and visual, one company controlled that. So when you watch Different Strokes, or you watch, all these television shows, whether it's PAL or NTSC, no matter, depending on what country you're on, they define that monetizing system. So when you watch television for free, it was paid for by brands, right? So Arnold from Different Strokes got paid money by brands, and we benefited watching it for free. And then cable came in and made the pipe a lot bigger, so you went from having 7 channels or sometimes 13 to 1,000, right? And then cable got even bigger, and you have an infinite amount of maybe 2,000 channels. Now internet is an abundance of channels, but it collapsed yesterday's business, right? And that was RCA's foundation. So, but the people that were running the record companies forgot that we were technology, and they made it to the point where if Coca-Cola licensed a Black Eyed Peas song or a Justin Bieber song, that license is split 50-50 with the record company and the artist. So, but when Tower Records bought records back in the day, or Virgin bought records back in the day, we monetized that, whatever your split was with the record company.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was 70-80, or 70-30 or 80-20 split. When iTunes, they don't purchase your music. It's a license. But every artist gets their money like if it was a physical purchase. Now that's kind of whack. But the reason why we don't see that the way that it should be, because most of us don't understand the deal structure that we're working around.
Yeah.
To the point, I asked this question to Scooter, or anybody else that feels free to answer it. What's more important, your 99 cents downloads or iTunes or wherever you're buying your music from, or your 200 million, 300 million views on Vevo? Most of us care more about, like, oh my gosh, I'm #1 on iTunes today. That's because that psychologically it's connected to purchasing.
Yeah.
When viewing on Vevo is free, but none of us are hooping and hollering, oh my gosh, I got this check because I got 500 million views on Vevo in the past year. That has not been the conversation. We are not hooping and hollering off of views. Even though these artists are getting hundreds of millions of views a shot in a month, but we don't know what that equates to, how you monetize it. The music industry is dead. It's been dead, and those that wanted you to think it's alive are profiting while we're sitting here complaining about something that is dead.
Yeah, to be fair, we're not sitting here complaining. We're sitting here debating it and getting your view on it and getting everyone's view of it in the room.
No, but it's dead. So now we have to define the next thing. Right now,
all right, everyone.
Right now, we have the ability.
Let's see a little bit later. Let's go back to Scooter. What does Justin care about? Tell us what Justin cares about. The sales, the Billboard chart position, the amount of people watching him on Vevo, which, by the way, is just about to touch a million for the last billion for the last single as it stands now. What does he look at or ask you about?
How
much money did he get? Vevo view.
Okay, hold on. Okay, one, I'm not going to say how much money any of my artists get on anything. Well, you know that. I can't do that. The next thing I'll say is I'll talk about another artist I represent who actually has the most viewed video ever in the history of online, which is Psy with Gangnam Style. So, you know, I can tell you that I actually didn't do that deal through Vevo because Psy originally made the video in Korea. When I did the deal, we actually kept the video off and we did the deal directly with YouTube. So one part of me, as Will's friend, wants to get mad at him for saying what he just said because he knows me well enough that I'm not going to come hooping and hollering until I have a plan. But sure, I've been thinking about this for the last 2 years and I've been gearing up to come in all ready to go and have this conversation because it is a very, very real thing. But, you know, what I will say to you is I think we got to change the conversation a little bit. I think artists care about their views. I think most artists, I agree with Will, look at is, well, what did I get on iTunes? And they know direct sales, the quickest check, you know, how they're being told to their royalty statements, which, by the way, is still based on cassette tapes, which is a whole different conversation. But I think what we need to realize is there's different people having different conversations about different needs. What Amanda said about who is going to put money back into art so that the next generation can make the quality art or have the training to make the quality of art or have the time to have creativity to make art that we can appreciate as a society, that's a question we need to answer. I think we need to look at how we change the system, which is a very tough thing to do, but it isn't as hard as we think. In any other industry, in sports, they have the players union. On Wall Street, there's someone watching. We're talking about $1 billion industry with music where no one is watching. It's the wild, wild west. You get what you negotiate. So a lot of these things where I go and talk, and Will and I have these conversations, and a conversation about it a couple months back, you know, you get what you negotiate, and you get what you go in there and you demand, and the only way you have innovation and change in the industry is if you demand it. And I think sometimes, many times within our industry, it's very, very hard for people to see that. A lot of managers, unfortunately, the best advice because they're afraid of being fired tomorrow, so they're trying to make the quick commission while they still can before they feel the artist is going to fire them. So we're not having conversations on behalf of the artistic community that's going to help them in the long run because a lot of people are being guided by people who have short-term goals. That being said, Will's question is correct. If I'm an artist who sells a lot of records but doesn't get a lot of views, I'm not going to care. I'm going to care about what those iTunes numbers, the Spotify numbers, that's what I'm going to care about. Some artists, by the way, don't give a shit about how they're monetizing things. They don't care. They just want their art to be out there and they want it to be respected and they don't want piracy. So different people ask different questions. I think it goes back to what I originally said. You got to ask what each person is asking and realize we're not talking about, how we can fix what is already there. I agree with it. That is dead. We need to address what is coming, and we need to make drastic change, but we also have to realize the only way drastic change is going to come, which is something I'm working on, and I know the artistic community is working on, is how do we let the artists have a voice at the table? Because the last time things changed dramatically, which was iTunes, the labels had a voice at the table, the artists did not. All that negotiating of how iTunes worked, how it was monetized, how we went back to being a singles business like the 60s, all that happened without any artist having a voice at the table. And I think as Spotify comes out and Beats comes out and all these different things come out, iTunes Radio, all these different things, the most important thing is that we allow artists to have a voice. And my advice to every artist out there, every young manager, is you better fucking demand a voice. Because if you don't, it's going to happen again, and you're going to be sitting there complaining, and you don't have shit to say because you didn't demand it in the first place.
And that gets back to Zoe, what she said right in her open statement about the artists having more control here. There was a million points there. I want to go through around our three other musicians here, because the question that was with what Will was saying and what Justin was saying is what's important to you? Because we've already heard about the time it takes up, what Zoe was telling us. Let's start with Imogen. What do you care about as a musician with everything going on in all the different spaces?
Well, the time to make music is one of the key ones. I'd love more transparency, and I'd love it. We have these amazing apps and technology out there, and they're coming every day. It's sometimes very difficult to navigate because there's so much new stuff coming out and not knowing, who's talking to who. But already, I know that, Songkick are speaking to Spotify, and there's ways now when people can, if people are on Spotify and they know that they're listening to this kind of music, they can then find out when that band is playing. I love Songkick. It's like brilliant. I went to a Songkick gig the other day. I went to see Jackson and his computer band, which I would never have known about if I hadn't got that little notification. And things like that are hugely changing the way that we can connect with our fan base. And Shazam as well. How amazing is Shazam? But if Shazam connected to Spotify, connected to Songkick, all these S's seems to be, if you want to be a good app, you have to have an S at the title. If they could all talk to each other and then, give the artists that information, that's what we really need. We need this information. There's all the amazing information out there that big companies have, little companies have. If there was some way to get that, to curate that for the artist, then we could really be empowered and choose how we navigate through this brave new world.
Zoe, that's Imogen and yourself are so on the same page here. What's really important to you day to day? Obviously, finding the time to be an artist in the first place, but what gives you the kick? Is it the amount of people who stream it, the amount of sales, the chart position, the likes? What is it?
We can't hear you yet.
The one voice I didn't want to lose was Zoe.
Wait, we can hear you now.
You're back
We
now.
hear you now. Yeah, here you are.
No, we can't.
Yeah, haven't got you. We're going to go back to Amanda, and then we'll come back to you, Zoe. You'd see, touch something about the nose. I think is what we got. Touch the nose. What I got. Amanda, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent. What's most important to you as a musician at the moment? Because same with yourself. Obviously, you get so much going on.
There I am.
Oh, let's go back to Zoe.
No problem, Amanda.
Now that we can hear.
Back to Zoe. Zoe, you're up.
Sorry about that. I was going to say it's that connection with my audience. Like, there's nothing like being on stage and feeling that thing when you're on stage and the audience is there and you're creating something together. Like, I need them to have the concerts, and then even like interacting with them on Twitter, and that's the thing that I care about the most, is just that feeling. And so I want to try to recreate that feeling as much as possible. It's nothing to do about technology. That's that feeling you get when you are experiencing music, and that I know that somebody gets it.
That's sort of reciprocated by every music fan in the room, because if we asked us what was most important about the music that you make, whatever way you listen to it, I just want to look you in the eye and see you play it, and I want to see your art on a stage in front of me, no matter where it is, no matter how big. And Ian, that must give you a buzz. Modern technology coming together to put people in, and that's so important, the human contact.
Yo.
And we still don't have a mic, so we're going to pass that over.
So I guess I like to take a really long view on music. If you think back 1,000 years ago, like, music was all about that live connection, right? It was about being in a room with someone. There was no CDs, record players, whatever else. It was all about live. And when I think about the technological innovation that I think transformed the music industry the most for me as a fan, it's the amplifier, right? Like, the amplifier came along, and you went from being able to play to however many people you could fit in a room with a guitar, to being able to play like 100,000 people at Glastonbury. And that's insane, the level of amplification that gave to art. And so the way I sort of look at the internet and live music, and you could argue that basically all of the decline in the recorded music has been offset by growth in the live industry. The way I look at it is kind of the internet should be like the next extension of the amplifier for concert going. And I think what Will said about kind of going back to first principles and what is an album, what is a song, can apply just as easily to what is a ticket. And right now, a ticket over the last 40 years hasn't really changed. And what a ticket is basically a way of figuring out if someone should be allowed into a building, and a way for people to add additional fees on top of the existing contract that started out between an artist and a promoter. And the way I look at a ticket should be an expression of what it's like to be in that room. Right? To me, it should basically be it's a connection, an economic connection between you as a fan and the artist you love. And that's what we're trying to do with Songkick, that's what we're trying to do with Detour. And every time we make the ticket a little bit more about the connection between artist and fan, what we see is that fans go to more concerts. We built Songkick, and every fan that uses Songkick goes to twice as many concerts the year after. That's a little bit of that amplification. I mean, I'm not like no Marshall amp yet, but like there's a little bit, right? And I think Detour's the same. Every time we've done a Detour show, bands have played bigger and better shows in new markets they didn't realize they could play to. So to me, I think what Will said is just let's look at the first principles of this industry and try and reset them all. And the nice thing is, he said get a geek, right? Like I'm a geek. Like I studied, machine learning and stuff at university. But I have quite pure intentions when it comes to music. I just want to help fans and artists connect in an authentic way. And I think if we just take it back to first principles, that will be what happens.
Absolutely. Nick, on Vevo, on that front, what do you do for emerging artists? Could you imagine if you put the latest Bieber video and a naked Miley Cyrus and a wrecking ball, and in between that was Zoe, in between that was Amanda, in between that was whatever. Just think of the power that you have to help new artists come in.
That is exactly the point, though. That is exactly the point of what we do. So curation is crucial to the way that you can bring people along, and that's what those artists such as Miley Cyrus and the Black Eyed Peas do, is they have huge popularity. In doing so, you can then bring new artists through. On Vevo in the UK last year, we had 1.3 billion video views in the UK of artists who had either their first or their second video last year. 1.3 billion. And everything for us is about music discovery. That is what connects the people who are really passionate about music. Because if you ask everybody, I speak at lots of things, and I'm always asking people, everybody put their hand up who's passionate about music. Everybody in the room puts their hand up. But when you actually look at what real passion about music means, live music, for us, is the biggest indicator of when people are passionate about music. Who went and saw a gig in the last 4 weeks? Those are the really passionate music people. Those are the people who have to actually look somebody in the eye and hear it live. So curation and connection with big artists and small artists is what it's all about. It has to be.
What about the middlemen? Vevo, for example, owned by record companies.
Yep.
And in terms of, would you like more clarity about who earns what from what you do? Or what about YouTube, when there's a company that you might be ethically against, Imogen, who have an advert over it it might have a golden arches in it or something, and you might think, any chance, either A, I don't want that on product, I'm not speaking for you, or B, can I have a whack of that? Yeah. Please.
It's very disheartening to go onto my Vevo channel and discover that there's some awful advert that I have to sit through, or if I have to show, if I want to show one of my friends or somebody to show them a video, and there's this really awful advert of something that I have no connection with at all, that I just wish I didn't have to sit through. I didn't have to put my family through that to watch that, to get to that video. I don't know exactly the deal that you have with the label that I license to, Sony, but I would like to. But it's not easy to get that information, and it would be great if it was.
That's for Sony to tell you.
But maybe you could tell us.
Will's tapping the screen. Talk to me, Will.
I want to add to that. So, say for example, I was on CSI, right? I was the main actor on CSI, and CSI was distributed on HBO. The actors at CSI are not paying for CSI to exist. So when you think of Vevo and 1 billion views a month of independent artists or artists that sign to a label, we have to pay for our videos to be on that platform. And so while we're paying for our videos to be on that platform, to Amanda's point, at what point in time does Vevo pay for content where that gives you the ability to put commercials that we don't want before our content? And if we did want it, can we choose what brands come before or after our content when I'm the one paying for the video?
Yeah.
That's a very, 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 very touchy subject that no one's talking about as far as this technology killing the music industry. Actually, the music industry has been redefined, utilizing the technology, leaving the artist out of the equation.
Yeah. And in a situation like that, Will, in terms of having a control on your ethics and not what you want connected to your video, you feel more should be done?
For a person that works with brands, so I got here very, very strategically by learning from Napster. Black Eyed Peas was a college group. We used to play colleges in 1996, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what we took our whole, that was our audience, was colleges. And when Napster came around, instead of hooping and hollering, I made friends with Parker and Fanning to understand this world. And they're still good friends because of that. Then I started hanging out with ad agencies and marketing companies. And the first iPod commercial and the launch of iTunes was Black Eyed Peas. We launched it with iTunes. At the time, with Apple, we didn't know what an iTunes or iPod was. So I remember what the conversations were, what iTunes was going to become, and what an iPod was, right? And then I remember sitting with Rio and Doug Morris and Jimmy, visualizing what Vevo was going to become. And what it turned into was different from what the conversation was back in 2008. So, and that's why I say, like, for certain people, Zoe or Amanda, there's things that they purchase when they go to the supermarket to get things in their homes. Shouldn't the artist say, you know what, I actually like this product and I don't mind it being in front of my content if the artist chooses to? And that's a way that they monetize it, by actually sanctioning, these are the things that I want around my content when I search it on Google or YouTube or Vevo. So the power has to go back to the artist, right? And that's what we're experiencing here, is somebody's monetizing it.
Yeah.
You can't just say like 1 billion views and be like, yep, and you're free just like the artists are free. Somebody's getting paid a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
And well,
You
I
got
mean,
right to reply.
so, absolutely. So
We ain't finishing this, by the way. It's just heating up.
we're so not
6
finishing.
minutes.
We're so
It's
not
not
finishing
stopping.
this. So the reality is that well over 50% of every dollar that we take, and we are only an advertising platform, so there is no subscription. So the only way we have a sustainable business is to put ads amongst the music. Now, the reality is that we run an ad every 3 videos, and I would love to put the ads that Will wants next to his music or Imogen wants next to hers.
Great.
But the reality, but that is so how do I do that? So I tell my salespeople.
I know how to do it. I can help.
I rather thought you might, Will. I rather thought you might.
Hit us with it, Will.
No. I know how to get that done. I can point you to the right motherfuckers.
Okay, I wanted to say something too. Is that, YouTube is a similar situation, and it's like, sometimes I feel like they ruin the audience experience by putting like an ad for Doritos over some of my music. And like, I am morally opposed to Doritos. So I would like to be able to say, but they have this whole like content manager interface where I can select all kinds of other things about what territory songs are monetized in or not. Why can't there also be some way where you could, just like when you invest and you choose different industries to invest in, can't I choose different ad groups that I don't ever want to see on my music? Like, surely there's like a simple technological problem they could do that, and I realize it's business issues, but whatever.
Do you know,
Those business issues are this. Check
There's
this
a
out.
huge problem with that. The huge problem with that is, what artist is going to click on the companies that we're all thinking of, the ones that you don't want before? And
No,
you know, money talks and bullshit walks, Will. And they're the ones that are paying the big money, those big corporations that the likes of Zoe and Imogen might not want on their videos. No one's going to click it. Vevo doesn't get their money. So you can say many
hold
times
on,
you're going to do
Vevo
it.
doesn't get their money, but then neither do
No.
the artists.
Exactly.
No, that's not. So right now, we're on this thing called Google Hangout. And I'm signed on this Google Hangout on my Google Plus. And my Google Plus, if I upload pictures, it controls my Google search on what pictures you see on the images.
Yeah.
And what I tweet and what I do actually goes back to my thing, the things that, you know, putting my social platform, giving it a personality based on consumption words and things like that. The technology is there. The only difference is you have 4 companies in this Google thing that probably don't connect the way they should. So there's Google, and then there's Android, and there's YouTube, and then there's Vevo. And they don't really connect the way they should connect, but you could actually make them connect the way you should connect, to where if a person has a freaking Google page, all their freaking things that they put on their profile, like if I could friend things, I should be able to friend brands. If I could put a 2 million friends, and I could go and send them content.
Will, can I stop you real quick? I just got to say something. I can see where this is going, and I just want to chime in real quick to make something clear. I manage acts. I have over 20 acts that we personally manage, from a country act to pop act to EDM act. We have a new artist, Tori Kelly, who's a singer-songwriter who really broke herself, recording her whole album, mastering the whole thing out of her bedroom, and, you know, singer-songwriter. Well, I can tell you the main problem here, there's like a thing I learned in school years ago. It's called no taxation without representation. And it was all, for us Americans, it was fantastic, because it was all about us learning how we started the American Revolution and left the Brits. But that being said, you know, it's the main issue you have here, and this is my, you know, what I learned as a manager. You can't expect to get anywhere with an artist unless you're willing to let them have a voice and have communication in the process. You can think you're making the right decision for them, business-wise, but if they're not in the know, they're going to kick your ass. And I learned that as a manager. So the biggest problem the technology companies are having, Vevo's having, everyone else, Spotify, and I work with all you guys, and I've had problems with you, and I've had good moments with you, is that you're not showing enough respect to the artists to go to them and say, we need to have a conversation. You're coming in after the fact. Speaking of Vevo, I remember the launch of Vevo. It was a beautiful night where everyone talked about a bunch of shit that no one knew what was going on. It was like, oh, John Mayer got up on a stage and said, you know, Vevo's coming and they're going to show what's happening behind the scenes for the artists. Yet Vevo had none of those rights. And Bono got up on stage and talked about how his daughter showed him which videos are the ones to watch. That had nothing to do with Vevo. Here's what I can tell you. At the time, the 3 biggest artists on YouTube in the world were sitting at my table. Their managers or them themselves. And I looked at all of them and said, did anyone from Vevo call you guys? And they said no. I said, no one called me either. And that was disrespectful to people who knew how to get the views themselves before Vevo was ever launched. So if you want to know how to fix this problem and make it easy for yourself when it comes to technology and music, start a conversation. What we're doing here will fix things you want to do. You're hearing Zoe step up and say,
that's brilliant, mate. Definitely start a conversation.
If we're running out of time, I'll simplify it. Talk.
Didn't hear what he said. What he said?
I don't know. I don't say one thing. Spotify hired me because I am an artist, a producer, and a writer. And if you have questions, you can always hit me, Skeet at Spotify.com.
Love you. Just give that right over the internet as well, which is wonderful stuff. I just need a final line from each of you, because what we've heard right across the board is more conversations with the artists, but then it's also worth remembering it feels like we're at a very early point in this, and you feel like the competition will grow, and there will be better deals through that competition, and artists can make more choices rather than this is a clear market leader here, and this is a clear market leader here, and this is the deal that I need to take. So let's just go around everyone, get one more line. I feel like I've really neglected you, Amanda. So what would you like to say, the one thing you haven't been able to yet tonight, or that you've learned or disagree with?
Oh no! Come back!
She was my favourite as well.
Come on.
Zoe, what would you like to say that you haven't been able to say tonight, or something going forward? I think you've been very strong on talk to the artist more.
Just include us. I believe that things can be small and big, and I believe that there is a place for the niche. So I would love to just, I'd like to work with music services to try to make the ecosystem of the future. So call me up.
Love it. And well, this conversation's going to seem, this conversation's going to seem really dated in a decade from now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, was that to me?
What have you got to say, Well, before we go? What would you take away from today?
Today, if there's any artists in the audience or all, fellow artists on the panel, managers, executives, right now there's this tsunami coming. Actually, it's a tsunami that we've seen happen to the record industry, but it's going to happen to a whole bunch of other industries as well. Manufacturing, distribution, and there used to be the super house, like the superpowers, those, and they separated the world, and we always look to them to bring things. Now we are them. This tsunami of democratization can potentially empower those who do research and couple themselves with,
Good time for it to go, really, because we're right at the end, and Trevor's already given you his email address out, so that's pretty much that summed up. Ian, what would you like to say what you heard tonight?
Well, I guess for any artists watching, I guess what I'd like to say is that it goes both ways, and I think it's the more accessible you can be to us as technology companies, the better. And I had breakfast with Zoe, and we talked about how we can make Songkick better and how to make Detour better. Met with Imogen and talked about how we can make what we're doing better. And I think it's actually a lot harder to contact artists than you might think. There's often like an agent in the way, or the email's not transparent, or you're too small for them to take seriously at that point in time. And I guess what I'd say is I think what Scooter said and what Will said about being really proactive as an artist in demanding things to work more the way you want. I think also just make yourself more accessible to us, and the technologists that are artist-centric will come find you.
Excellent. Nick?
Yeah, I can't believe that we can't have more conversation and make more out of it. From our point of view, we want to be what the artists want, but the ultimate aim is we're trying to monetize a business and trying to do that the best way we can. Now, if there's other ways of doing it, new ways of doing it, we're really keen to understand that, because we want to work with artists to make it better.
Imogen, final word of the night to you.
Well, Amanda's back, so we've got to talk to her.
Hey, get in. Second last word of the night.
Yeah, definitely, Amanda deserves the last word. Yeah, I just think I would love to continue the conversation. I would be happy to go online once a month, once a week, to actually continue this really, with people and really just get us all together, tech companies, app companies, labels, whoever, just, internet service providers, get everyone online and really talk about it and really try to, and have a solution, a blog about the ideas, get people involved. I would absolutely love to do that. So if I'm up for it next week to kind of get together.
We all get paid again?
Maybe.
I'm up for it. Yeah.
You got paid for this.
Wait a minute. Sorry, do we all make a charitable donation for this?
But I think, the transparency and for trying to make sure that companies, when they come onto the market, they have to be transparent in a certain way, so that we can gather that information, goes back to the people that need it, and can also perhaps add to this semantic web idea that everything is connected, that everything speaks to one another, that it's not just an autonomous thing that doesn't connect to anything else, that we somehow can share this information.
If there's one thing that's been said by everyone tonight, it is that. And Amanda, I'd like to get back to something that has been sort of touched on a little bit, just as a final word from you, and also just create this time, because to make it easier and more transparent gives you more time to do the amazing music that you do.
Well, the interesting thing that the theme that I've kind of picked up on here is that, artists definitely want to have more of a choice and a voice. And one of the things that's difficult is, and I thought about it most when Will was saying it, is there are a lot of artists out there that don't want to be technological warriors. They don't want to have to spend all day talking to a geek. They don't want to create a whole new fucking platform. They just want to make music. And, I happen to be really into my business, and I happen to be super social and connected to my fans. And, Will has his advantages, and Zoe has hers. But, for the many, many, many artists who don't necessarily want to delve into the tech business and engage in this way, my question is always what about them? And are we going to lose an entire generation and group of art makers and songwriters and creators who aren't willing to spend all day deciding about brands and deciding about tech and talking with geeks and creating things. And whose responsibility is it? I mean, is it going to be this Darwinian thing where they just all die and disappear because they weren't willing to go on Twitter and engage and create new tech paradigms? Or,
No, I didn't mean
companies,
that.
sorry, let me just finish, I'm almost done.
Yeah,
or
and
the
then that'll be
the companies like Vevo and YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and the larger artists and the general audience out there are going to take steps to actually try to take care of those people. That's my big question.
And that'll have to be your
No,
last word.
so
'cause-
I just want to clarify one thing. So when I said artists should collaborate with other, it's just collaboration. An artist doesn't have to think that. That's why they should just have a person around them that thinks about those things. Like we as musicians, we use other people's technology that they brought up. We know the person that we know Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones, but we don't know the people that created the piano. I don't know the person that created the trumpet that Miles Davis plays with. I don't know the person that invented the violin. Musicians have to start to learn to respect the things that they use to make their art, right? So, and that is by coming up with other platforms that they could be a part of, and not just worry about just music to monetize, because you can't monetize it anymore. Yeah. If you're going to be comfortable in that place and a tsunami comes, that's just your fault for not moving. We have to move.
You vote Darwinism.
Guys, we got to leave it at that. I'm sorry, we're way over. Virgin are paying for the stream and they're shouting at me here. It's costing like 10 grand a minute or something. Should we just keep going? No, we can't do that. I'm just going to make one point. It's the only point I'm going to make tonight. We talked very simply about an artist can just do this and an artist can just do that. When I was growing up, I couldn't afford any of the basic technology, and I hope we don't leave people behind that don't have that money. They're in situations when parents aren't working, to be able to still connect to those people and connect on the internet, no matter what it is. We make it like everybody can afford a phone. Everyone can afford a laptop. Everyone can shoot their own video. Everyone can mix because they can buy this particular software. There's a whole lot of people that can't do that, and I think that's got to be looked at as well, supporting artists everywhere from every different class. 20 years from now, it'll be a different discussion. 20 years ago, none of this would have made any sense. Thank you to our Virgin Disruptors. Thank you for watching, and thanks to everyone in the room.
Thank you.